Okay, so newsflash, it's obviously like pretty late at night on Mother's Day. Personally, like I think I will just watch either like Precious or Serial Mom and call it a night. I won't get into it, but I'm not exactly in a celebratory mood uh, for numerous reasons. I actually don't look as bad as I think I do. Like I kind of like this crazy, haggard Barbie got thrown in the back seat of the car and like jumbled around look. Like I think it works. I thought about I don't know doing a mask, but I kind of like the like texturally. I like that it's kind of buoyant, um, which my hair usually isn't, just because it's pretty thick. So I kind of have to over process it for it to even like end up like this. But what was I even talking about? I don't know. I was trying to record on my camera, but it's like overwhelmed and overburdened by storage, which makes sense because it's kind of higher quality. So the trade-off is like obviously I can record higher quality video, but it's not exactly a vlogging camera. So this is almost better. I just think like YouTube is obviously not going to push out something that's like SD quality and is meandering and doesn't have like a cool thumbnail to promote the video. Like I don't know who the target audience is here, but I just feel like I don't know, lately I just feel so motivated to like capitalize on every moment I can to work on something relative to career, like whatever that may be. And again, that's independent of like obviously like income. I'm talking about maybe hopefully venturing into a new pursuit where like I can make income independently and find community independently, which would be great. Like I'm just starting out. I'm not going to do mukbangs. I mean, I'm not against mukbangs. Don't get me or mukbangs. Mukbangs? How is that pronounced? Because I'm pretty sure it started as like kind of in, wasn't it like East Asian fad sort of like um, a lot of vloggers from that part of the world, I think, right? Like, and it kind of migrated to the U.S. a long time ago. I don't know. I would do that, but like, I don't really eat out much, and also, again, like, it's just easier to cook elsewhere. I don't know. God, it would be nice though. Like, it would be nice to be able to like monetize this and actually make this a thing where I could just comment on things like sincerely, and even if it is kind of SD and grainy, like, well, welcome to life. Like, I don't know why it has to be high tech. I don't mind watching something that's lower quality, but maybe that's just me. I kind of lived like 30 years ago, so I don't know. But I don't like it's crazy. It's just like something kind of zapped in me lately, and maybe it is like Year of the what is it like Fire Dragon, um, Fire Horse? Sorry, why am I saying dragon? It's Year of the Fire Horse, isn't it? Um, and like coming out of a snake year, like Chinese astrologically, like I don't know. I just feel more motivated. I feel like we're moving into like Aquarius North Node times, and I don't know, like arguably I think like a lot of the things I've talked about would make me cancelable. And I don't mean to be like blithe about that, but at the same time, like I don't know, I just take on this attitude of I don't even know where that trend started or originated. I don't know where people like began to subscribe to this notion that it's normal to completely exile people on the basis of mistakes they've made in life. Like I understand like intentionally deliberately doing things for a long recorded period of time and not making any like measurable changes or promoting things that are obviously not good. Like that would be another framework, but I think this attitude of like, let's just completely all jump on a bandwagon where we don't independently think and individuate and consider things from a more like rounded perspective instead of immediately targeting people for things that they've done. And like, I do think obviously, if people lack the self-reflective capacity, that is a whole other matter. But I just think we live in this culture that's kind of insane. It's like, I don't understand how people can be up in arms about Amazon, and yet, like, what do you stock your house with? And I don't mean to be that derivative because that's such a poor argument, and I know that, like, someone would make the, would advocate, like, well, it's avoidable. But, like, is it? Like, how many people are employed by that company? How many people depend on that income? How many like brands, organizations, like groups, small businesses run their material through Amazon and not through alternative sites? I'm all for an alternative site, but unfortunately, a lot of those don't exist unless you're in like the independent marketplace, like eBay, like other forms, Ko-fi. Like there's some ways to navigate that terrain. Um, Maybe like what else is there? Like obviously there's the clothing reselling apps, but like I just mean in terms of like actual product that you want on shelves places, I just feel like it's kind of asinine. Like pretty much everyone in the US for the most part are either going to have what? Like Samsung, iPhone, like Blackberries are obsolete, so that's not a thing anymore. You're gonna pay for a cellular plan, so that's gonna be like Sprint, T-Mobile, Mint, AT&T, whatever. All of these things parlay into the same machine. So like I don't understand some of the rhetoric behind like let's all band together on this and let's all like mutually cancel this without really recognizing the elephant in the room, which is like even The Devil Wears Prada 2, which you're buying tickets for right now, and super excited to see Meryl Streep and Anne Hathaway back on stage despite Annie's, sorry, recent controversies. I'm just getting used to that, but like, you do realize like how distribution works, right? Like, and I don't mean to be condescending. That sounds so fucking condescending, and I hate condescendingness. But I am like saying like from a production point of view, like people do realize how that works, right? And like how like who gets paid and how that's distributed and how it's distributed to these companies. So like your leisure time where you're buying like that $15 ticket or however much it's going to be, or when you go to see like Wicked and Wicked for Good and you're supporting Ariana Grande, who I love, but she's had her fair share of controversies obviously, and like she's had a questionable history. Does that define a person? No, and I don't believe that. Like, I respect that she's really made something of herself, and I, I know Cynthia Erivo's a little bit maybe contradictory to some, but I also do like Cynthia. I think they're both like immeasurably talented. I don't think we can even question that, and like, good for them. Like, good for them for really putting themselves behind that. But I just think like unless we're like independently producing things, which I really respect Kristen Stewart for because she's really trying to spearhead that, and like obviously recently I think purchased the Highland Theater, which I was always wondering like is someone going to take that over because it's just been sitting vacant and like guarded by like fence rail basically for all this time. Another story on why I can't really go in that vicinity anymore after like a really horrible experience, but I detail that in like the memoir stuff a little bit, like vaguely. I don't really get into it because I don't want to relive it, but anyway, maybe another time. But I just think like I don't know, maybe it is devil's advocate, maybe it makes me a horrible person. It's not that I lack empathy or awareness around that. I don't know that it's achieving what people think it is. Like, I don't think that, like, boycotting the Met Gala is going to stop people from, like, selling out tickets to Devil Wears Prada 2. And, like, where do you think distribution plays in? Where do you think, like, Devil Wears Prada 2 is going to be marketed after it leaves theaters? It's going to go on platforms like Amazon, and people are going to purchase that film. So either way, even if people are boycotting the machine, it's like, it's all still part of that process. Like, that process does not get eliminated. You are still feeding it. You know what I mean? And that's kind of my perspective is, like, I much rather would take an approach of, like, cutting straight to the source and saying like, and obviously some people cannot be reasoned or rationalized or negotiated with, but like I also do think that like the CEO of that company is a shrewd businessman, and although he's kind of built that somewhat exploitatively, allegedly, like um, that can change. Like I do think it could theoretically change if there was incentive enough, and obviously if this administration didn't have the grip hold it did, I think companies would be behaving differently to mirror that. And while it might be a totally unrealistic and disproportionate aim, I do kind of play that role of like, I'm willing to take more of an unconventional approach to things and say, like, can we make a questionable thing better? Can we do maybe like what the divorce of Bezos has done, where she's redistributed like a lot of her assets into things that she cares about, and obviously that's selectively, and obviously she still has a massive quantity of resources that I just can't even fathom. But like that's what I mean, where it's like I would like kind of in a Brene Brown sort of way, or like an interviewer sort of way, or an Oprah sort of way, like although Oprah herself is a little questionable, like I would sit down with these people. If I were invited to events like that, I would make a point of obviously like I would not be invited to those events, number one. Number two, like on the basis of who I am, I doubt I would be. But I would ask those meaningful questions. I would be like, hey, like I respect that you probably resent like anyone who disagrees with you, and understandably so, like you've built your empire and it's run a certain way and you have to run that in like conducive to these upper people. But like I don't think Amazon is going to become obsolete anytime soon. I mean, maybe it is if the revolution persists, but like realistically it probably won't. And realistically, there's still an embargo within these like massive entities, like even entertainment industry wise, like, and that's why people are pushing, you know, like with like I think the Warner's merger and other things, like there is so much like pushback because people want to retain a sliver of something that isn't tampered with. But it's like ultimately, I think it will come down to actually being willing to have meaningful and direct conversations with some of these people and saying like, hey, I can see your perspective in some ways. Like obviously I have Jewish relatives, and I was exposed to that my entire life, so I kind of understand like some of the devotional attitude to Israel and like the Mecca and the pilgrimage and like being a part of that world, and yet like simultaneously, despite like Jewish oppression, I don't think that validates a genocide even towards like neighboring like arguable historical conflict. And like right now I'm rereading like Chutzpah, which kind of goes into like the spirit of like the emboldened Jew, basically. Which again, I'm not really the most qualified to talk about because I don't even know if I'm like ethnically Jewish. I've been raised with it. I feel very associated with it. My family members and loved ones are, you know, a parent, although I don't consider them a parent, was bat mitzvah. So, you know, I'm not unexposed. I just, full transparency, like, it's not, you know, I was raised kind of hybrid and in religious schools, so I have a little context for it. And it interests me. And, like, I wouldn't consider myself partisan to anything religiously specifically. I would not consider myself a Gentile. Um, despite being, again, I go into this into the text, but like, despite being baptized, I wouldn't. Um, you know, it's fine. Like, if that's what people want to believe, but I don't really believe in like a universal Messiah necessarily. I think the idea of like God's chosen people makes more sense to me, personally, because I do think that like a multitude of people could be carrying traits of that. But I also like simultaneously do kind of believe in heaven or some form of afterlife. Although like I do question some of its merits, like I don't know. I guess it's kind of like like obviously that I'm aware of Ashkenazi Jewish, but like definitely like familial ties to that my entire life. So, like I don't know. And I also don't know. Like I legitimately don't know. Who knows? But I don't think so. But I don't know. Um, Either way, I don't know what I'm trying to get at exactly. But I just like, even with that CEO, I sort of get like I get it. Like I get it with like especially Orthodox Jews and like people who still have that sort of like attitude and that fidelity and that loyalty to Israel. But at the same time, it's like what about all the bodies of children? And what about and sorry, that's not funny. I just kind of laugh in awkward situations, but like or difficult conversations, but like out of habit, I guess. I don't know. It's not an excuse, but it's just a habit. Or a tick, I guess. Um, but like, I don't know how you could see that level of like devastation and like bones protruding through backs and not having like empathy for that and understanding the conflict of that. But it's like, why couldn't that be a conversation with Ellison where it's just like, listen, you obviously have a monopoly, you obviously have an embargo, you obviously have like executive control over like Paramount and other things, and like which is being passed on to your son, and like you are kind of aligned with Trump and like that administration, which is a whole other thing. But it's like, how can you be like I don't even understand as because he is Jewish, isn't he? Like I just don't understand how like a Jewish man could be like condoning of a Trump administration. Like it just even Epstein did not like Trump, and I don't want to be saying that so vocally, but like I mean, come on, like I already know I have a target on my back. I'm not unaware of that, or like blissfully unaware of that. Um, it's just so complex because it's like obviously I don't think you could navigate a dialogue with Trump. You can't really navigate a dialogue with Elon Musk. I mean, unless I guess you play favoritism and you tell them what they want to hear, maybe. But like maybe others are more amenable to that. I don't know. I'm trying to remain hopeful. I'm trying to remain hopeful that like we can still retain the limited free speech we have through things like YouTube, through TikTok, because let's face it, Substack isn't exactly a video sharing platform. Instagram is still just kind of glorified photography and celebrity. That's about it. Tumblr is a blogging space, but I don't, I don't necessarily know how much foot traffic goes through that app anymore. Blue Sky is emerging and it's cool, but the founders strike me as like odd for one, and number two, it's not like it's fine. It's good. I like it. I don't dislike it, but I just think like I tried doing that. What was it like? Sky Dance or Blue Dance or whatever dance? Sky Dance. What am I thinking of? Sundance? What am I trying to think of? Anyway, I don't know. But like, nah, not really. Not great. Like it's fine. But if you're looking to like actually reach significant quantities of people, unless you're like actually a known person on there, I don't think it's really conducive to that. Like, I don't know if it's conducive to self-starters. Like, I have followers on there, and I appreciate that. Like, honestly, cross-platform, anyone who does keep up with my insane tirades and rants, and even if it is, like, a couple views, like, that's meaningful to me because at least I know that it's reaching someone, but... And I don't care about interaction personally that much. It actually kind of overwhelms me. Like, I get overwhelmed by likes and comments and messages. Like, my brain kind of just shuts down. Partially because, again, like OCD, which I think is more like CPTSD derivative. Like if I have a really hard time liking posts, leaving comments, now sending DMs, and I think like some of the experiences I've gone through have really magnified that, and I do think like it would behoove me to You know, like I've obviously discussed it privately, but like I don't know how to like fix it necessarily, and I've really strained from pursuing like medication as an option just because, like, for one, I just fundamentally disagree with it. Like, for myself, I think just because, and like, it's not without research. Like, I do believe in therapy, I do believe in like conducive therapies to treat things, but I don't know if I believe in big pharma. Um, I do believe in like alternative like medication. I do believe in like, you know, kind of like what India from Nexium did, where she was kind of experimenting with psychedelics and stuff. Like, I do kind of vouch for that just because I think like more like psychotropic drugs in like small legal quantities, probably like alternative medicine would probably be more my thing. Um, just because like I know that like people have discussed microdosing and how much it's really helped them with trauma recovery, what am I saying, recovery from trauma, and also just like kind of navigating through the world a little bit. It's relaxing, and as someone who is like extremely OCD, that might help me theoretically. And also, like, who is this for? I know I'm just going on a tirade, and I'm not eating French fries, so it's probably not like that entertaining. Because who is this random person with their fleecy, like neon yellow Cinderella weave? Sorry, I don't want to say weave, wig. Um, but you know what I mean. Uh, it's just a little frazzled. Um, yeah, anyway, I don't know. Like, I just feel like I am a good tableside personality, and maybe I'd like to have some of these dialogues with actual people and have some interchange, you know. Um, but it's hard. Like, I think it's hard in the world of today, and with what our priorities are, and again, like with what cancel culture is, which is it culture? Is it culture to just like, I understand, okay, like Epstein, okay, understandable. Donald Trump, like, understandable. Certain political people, understandable. Like, that's maybe more of the categorization of like, I don't think we're going to cross a bridge over troubled waters here. Maybe we should just let the slack weight go. When people show you like repetitive or redundant patterns, that sort of thing. But then I think like simultaneously within that sphere, it's like, where can we make different accommodations? Where can we be willing to kind of bend instead of just restrict? Because I don't know that that's really assisting anything unless we just had a mass exodus and all quit social media and all stopped buying consumer goods of all shapes and sizes from every like department store and every chain and just went, you know, small mom and pop for everything, which I don't think is even viable. I think it's possible, but I don't think it's viable. It could be, but it's not right now. So I just float in this weird like ether of like, obviously I don't want to put investment behind things that I don't think are good or conducive to anything necessarily positive. Like, obviously what ICE is doing with immigrants is not positive, but you can't help but see the inevitable, can you? Like, can you not see, like, even with, like, even if you withheld taxes, even if you, which some people do, you know, I'm not, like, the most expert person on that subject, just given my circumstances. But I guess my point is to say, like, not that I'm, like, illiterate to it, but you know what I mean? Like, I just, that's another story. But I don't know. Like, I feel like people's approach is kind of like, let's just instantaneously boycott this company and let's boycott this person. And like sometimes it's effective, I think, when it's like a clear solution. It's like when you think of like the SAG-AFTRA strikes, when you think of, you know, maybe like Me Too, when you think of BLM, when you think of, again, like maybe like the boycott of like Target, for example. Target kind of makes sense to me just because there are like existing alternatives. But then you do, and like also, I do think like Disney at the time when that whole Kimmel thing happened, even though I'm not a huge fan of Kimmel, not relevant. They were, First Amendment. Like, I agree with that. Like, and obviously, they had to be amenable to people's demands on the basis of that. But at the same time, are we just going to inevitably, constantly boycott Disney when, like, I don't know that that's proactive? Like, obviously, Disney has more and more, like, kind of scandals coming out, and I've heard, like, secondhand about things about like there apparently there's some like pedophilia ring allegedly within the cruise network, which is crazy, but not necessarily surprising when you hear about Epstein. But it's like, can some of these brands, which for me, like I love Disney, like just as entertainment, as like I mean, obviously, I wish it were more diversified, and I wish that it would be a little, like, more progressively oriented in a way that felt sincere. And, like, I want to be involved in that. Like, I want to be involved in maybe transforming some of these more questionable entities to be a little more forward facing and saying, like, you can do this a different way and still profit. You can still like meet your quarterlies and make your investors happy while also like tabulating and considering consumer needs and where people are in the market today and financially and in terms of what resources they possess. And I do think that's novel because I'm not referring to anyone when I bring these things up. I'm not going to a guide. This is just in my head, but like, and not that I'm necessarily qualified, but I just mean like I want to play a role in that. And I think if Disney were to see it, it's like I'd love to be involved in pushing the needle in a different direction. And obviously, maybe that's not conducive right now with the current administration, which doesn't intend to leave. Um, but like, as ornery as that might be, and as firm as the grip may seem, I think it's slipping. And I think there's awareness that it is, and I don't think it's going to be the last Christmas for everyone. I think that's just kind of an asinine statement. Even if I were rounded up and like taken in by ICE and taken to a detention center and thrown in an incinerator, like which could happen, I don't know. Well, then I'd rather advocate for the things that I feel now and try and circulate them and try and get them out through the means that are accessible. And I'm sorry, but Vimeo and like the Internet Archive, like if I upload videos there, they're just going to get lost in a sea of other things. Like it's not going to reach anyone. There aren't exactly existing platforms that bypass that. There is no like ethical YouTube right now. There's just YouTube. And like, not that YouTube is unethical, but I just think like they've obviously funded forward things that are. And there are plenty of people who are still actively posting on YouTube, actively posting on TikTok, plenty of people who still own iPhones, own MacBooks, own Apple products that they pay monthly fees on. I just think like the feasibility of totally disconnecting yourself from these like sources, it's not feasible. It's not realistic. It can be done, but it's also kind of like, what is the ultimate goal? Where is this headed? Like, we're gonna defund it, and then what? Like, what's the next logical step to that? They meet our demands, temporarily, like, restructure themselves, but then inevitably going back to what they were already doing before, because there's already, like, a clear apathy and disdain for anyone that disagrees. Like, why not instead table that in favor of like actually having a dialogue, which I don't know that any celebrities who attended the Met Gala even attempted to do. Like, is that something that they did? People had to be seated at the table with Bezos and Sanchez. Like, I have to wonder, like, did anyone actually bridge that conversation in an effective way? Like, you have to kind of be a little more moderate and a little more understanding. And I wouldn't consider myself moderate. I don't look moderate. Um, but I do think like I can be mediating. Like I know how to kind of strike that balance and be respectful and just say like, listen, I don't agree with this. What are ways that maybe you could address that and transfer that and still like not lose profit? Like obviously I think it is massively profitable for them to be endorsing the administration right now just because you've seen how that money shifts around. But not all good money is good money. And I think if you have a spiritual grasp of these things, look at revolutions past. Okay, look at the French Revolution, look at the American Revolution, like, and I know the founding fathers are questionable, but like, look at historical revolutions and how those have panned out. Like, not all money is good money. Not all money is retainable money. Not all money lasts, and not all legacies last. And when we're entering into a year specifically that is more like people oriented, I would caution some of these companies and these CEOs and these corporations that a bunker might not solve your problems, and eliminating all of the problems might not solve your problems. Because while you can exist and subsist on what you've acquired and attained, like, if your strategy is to continually build wealth, why would you deplete a consumer base? People aren't all just going to jump ship. That's irrational. And even if you groomed a society to be the exact society you wanted, with the exact, like, non-undesirable people in that society, eventually that society would still collapse because it's not reflective of the times that we're in, and it's not reflective of what we've established. So it's kind of like, hey, Bezos, I get it. I get your aversion to, like, the libtard group or the people who are, like, I don't know, like, would not be able to probably have a rational conversation with you. And I think that's fair to say, because even among, like, advocacy groups, it's not exactly like a seasoned, grounded, diplomatic conversation. And it kind of has to be. Like, if we are going to cross that bridge, it's not going to be by total polarity. And I'm not saying I'm a great candidate for that. I'm probably not. But, like, I do think I can be objective, and I do think I can come up with strategy that, might behoove them, but also benefit us. And if that endorsement goes away, then obviously some of these parties are weakened. Like, the current administration, the Heritage Foundation, all of these things, they're not as strong if you take away some of the armor. And the armor is the investment, is the backing, is the, financial investment from these monoliths. And, like, you would be ignorant to not presume that, because it's not real estate anymore. It's not Mar-a-Lago. Like, I don't know. I just think we're in a place where we need to go about things differently. And honestly, I do feel like I want credit where credit is due. I don't hear a lot of people talking about this. I do think I could do it, or assist in doing it. And I don't know, I just think we could theoretically build a fairer world. And maybe all of the chaos of what we've undergone, even within this presidency, exposing all the underlying matters at hand, that's an opportunity to restructure and rebuild in a way that benefits everyone and not just selectively. And I want to be a part of that. I think we're capable of doing that, but we do need to approach it differently, because the way that we're going about it, I'm sorry, it's not doing much. It can do a lot, but not permanently. Especially if there is just apathy. If there's not a logical rationale, there's not going to be a jump. If there's not financial incentive, if there's not political incentive, if there's not some incentive, it's just not going to happen. Like, you have to understand, maybe on some level, what these personalities are like. Like, I know that Kounalakis talks about not negotiating with, you know, people who can't be reasoned or negotiated with, and that's true. I agree with her. Like, I would say that everyone I voted for or pulled for, like, represents a more liberal faction. Like, I didn't vote, Republican, because I'm not, clearly. But that's not to say that, like, I'm off the wall. Like, I know how to navigate certain spaces, and I do think that's, like, viable, personally. Oh my god, I'm so sunburned, I think, right? It has to be, because it's, like, tingly. But, I don't know. I'm concerned for the general trend of wanting, like, a quick band-aid solution to things through organization, like, to stop things. And, like, I respect it, because I totally disagree with what's happening with ICE and what's happening with immigrants and how they're being treated, and just the inhumane treatment. It's unconscionable, and, like, what's happening abroad is unconscionable. I don't think anyone with any basic ethics could deny that, but simultaneously, like, we have to function within what exists, and I do. Like, if I'm wanting to get material out there and I'm wanting to write and share it, I kind of have to go about it a certain way right now, because I've tried other methods and they haven't really panned. So maybe that will change given time, but we're not there yet, and I also would never trust AI or anything AI run with that material, so that's a whole other thing. But I don't know, like, maybe we do need some objectivity, you know? And I think when we get into these subjective races of, like, how SJW can you be? How promotional of this can you be? And, like, obviously, I don't mean to disparage the fact that what's happening are, like, genocides and wars and horrible, like, oppression. I'm not denying that, but I am saying, like, maybe there is or are alternative pathways to the same result, where we just go about this a little more practically instead of emotionally, which I'm all for emotionally, don't get me wrong. I just don't know if it's working, like, or if it can work on its own, you know? Like, I do think it would behoove people who are inviting, the Madam X salacious dress or whatever to the event, and, like, not to diss her, I'm just saying, like, she obviously wants the spectacle, like Kim Kardashian wants the spectacle wearing, Marilyn Monroe's naked dress. Like, we get it. And I don't mean to be that crass and crude and, like, cruel, because it's, like, it's still just a person, good or bad, but, like, if we want to negotiate, then we have to be willing to negotiate. Like, you know what I mean? I know, again, like Kounalakis has said, you don't negotiate with people who won't, and, like, that's true, that's fair, but you kind of have to when there's a monopoly over our resources that isn't just going to magically disappear overnight. Like, we don't live in a homestead economy. We don't, like, live like the Amish. Like, we live in a consumer-oriented world where everyone has devices, everyone is monitored, everyone kind of subscribes to AI whether they want to or not. I mean, it's in our security cameras at this point. There's no avoiding it entirely, but we can curtail it. Curtail, is that? No, we can restrict it. We can pass legislation to restrict it. We can get the right representation within, entities like California, so that kind of curbs some of, perhaps, like, the current administration's reach, because they do rely on California's funding. All those things are true, but I don't know if, like, an Amazon boycott is going to transform the world. Like, realistically, I don't think it is. Like, it's not going anywhere. McDonald's isn't going anywhere. All of the corporations that have backed, and like a lot of these things have like private ownership. And that's the other thing I want to stress. It's like even this McDonald's that I'm at is privately owned. There are good people who work here, just like there are good people who are staff members at Disney. It's like they rely on these incomes because guess what? Our economy and our job market is trash. Like, it's just trash. People are filing like hundreds of applications. They can't get jobs as baristas. They can't get jobs at like a Dollar General or a Dollar Tree, like as a cashier, if you don't have that specific training. So it's like, and these are people, and like I'm also, being somewhat self-referential because I'm trying to find extra work, but it's like, it's hard in this economy, and it's especially hard for artists, and it's especially hard for like, any, like I would consider advocates, and I don't necessarily consider myself one, obviously, but I don't not either. I just think I kind of toe the line where it's like, I realize, and it's impressed upon me, that like we can't just eliminate these things by like snapping our fingers and rallying and joining together and thinking that it magically changes everything. It doesn't, and it historically hasn't. Like, if all of the same things are rearing their head, then maybe we need a different strategy, because the Supreme Court still ruled that awful ruling. Like, right? I mean, and we can protest and we can fight back, but like, I don't know, like I'm concerned for like how effective can it be? Like, these people, and CEOs especially, possess so much more resource. Like, and that's not to discourage people from protesting. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying, like, can there be alternative means to the same end goal? Can we approach things differently and still reach the same destination? Can we work with perhaps somewhat difficult, challenging, controversial people and use some of those resources to not only get them on track with something slightly different, but also to show them that a different model can exist? Like, is that theoretically possible, I guess is my question. And can we posit that to the right people at the right events with the right traction in order to create more meaningful change that benefits everyone? Which I think would be the goal, because otherwise why would they endorse it, If it doesn't benefit them financially, why would they? They won't. Anyway, my laptop will die soon, so I need to stop. And I'm sure this will be grounds to be, like, canceled before I'm even known. It's not anything I'm not used to. Like, and I detail that in a pretty raw way. Granted, that would also require people reading what I've written, which I'm not exactly expectant of. But it would be nice. Like, because I'm realizing, like, maybe I write because there is someone out there who will read it and take something away from it, and it will mean something to them. Even in a society where we are more inclined to listen maybe to audiobooks than we are to, like, sit down with something. But, like, there have to be people out there, right? Like, I have to be doing something right. It feels right. Anyway.